All right. Well, good evening, everybody. As promised, I am on tonight with Dr. V, and we have been on before talking about her book recently released last year, 2022, Surrender or Explode, Learning to Play the Game of Life God's Way. Well, we are back. A lot has happened. Dr. V, you had the Super Sunday, you had the 5 week study. You had a focus group, you had a kickoff with a focus group of young people. Now we're at the top of the year. You recently had a huddle with your inner circle. So we're back to talk about what's the status. What did you learn? What happened with the Super Sunday? What happened with the huddle? What are you learning about this whole thing of the youth and their state, and getting them to surrender rather than explode? What's the difference in the two? What's happening in these various environments, and how is it that people can engage? So I'm gonna let you take it and give us an update.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity once again. I am trying to contain myself because I don't want to explode in a good way on my live opportunity this evening, but I am exploding with excitement because I learned some things. And that's the good thing about having a huddle. You know, when you bring your coach together and the quarterback and you all get together, you share. I saw this, I heard this, I think this, you come together and you share, and we did that. And I have a few takeaways from the meeting. And one of the most exciting takeaways is how diverse my game changers are. Because some people think when they hear game changers, that must mean a pastor, or that must mean a coach, or that must mean hooba hooba. But game changer means anybody, I break it down to, who doesn't want to wait for something to happen, but they want to make something happen. And that group in my huddle on Saturday, we had dads and we had moms and we had some ministers and we had some coaches and we had some neighbors and we had some friends and we had some uncles and we had, but they were all committed to working with our youth to help them learn to play the game of life God's way and not explode otherwise. And so if I had a place to start, I would start by saying, please don't get it twisted. And I'm wearing a Don't Get It Twisted t-shirt tonight.
Yay!
Please don't get it twisted what a game changer means and who is and who isn't a game changer. Because at the end of the day, game changers aren't waiting. Game changers don't need an invitation. Game changers are waiting and ready to come into the game and make a difference. So that was the most exciting part of that meeting, because I just wasn't sure who was going to show up. And man, that group was diverse. So number two, what I realized loud and clear, it was echoed over and over and over again, is that we realized that we have not changed our strategy, even though the game has changed. And so I've got the new tagline: new day, new way. We can't keep working with our young people, teaching our young people, training our young people the way we have for all these years, because it's a new day. And it's a new day for a lot of reasons. It's a new day because of the pandemic and how that impacted group gatherings. It's a new day because the issues and the challenges are more risky, sometimes life-threatening. And please don't get me started on how the youth, the lives of our youth are threatened today the way your life and my life weren't threatened in days gone by. So we've got to have new methods, and the new methods cannot be sermon, lecture, let me tell you what to do, now go home and do what I said. That's not going to work. Our young people these days have to make their own decisions and choices. We have to help them analyze and process it effectively, but we can't force them. We can't force sermons down their throats. We can't force lectures. We can't force our beliefs and values down their throats, but we have to help them build a foundation of beliefs and values and knowledge, truths, based upon God's word. And then we have to help them process and analyze that data effectively.
Now, Dr. B, I have a question. So
Okay, give it to me.
in light of that point, what did you find out from the game changers, the adults in your huddle, in your inner circle? So this was, a group of people that kind of have your heart. They understand the mission. They understand, the movement.
Right.
What was their plight? What was their position when it came to understanding, how to take this role, how to step into this position? Was there pushback? Was there transparency and authenticity about, I'm not sure that I'm up for this challenge, or I don't know what was the plight of, kind of some of the feedback you got from those adults?
Sure. So I'm going to quote my bishop for just a moment, because one of the causes for concern was, how do I disrupt the status quo? Because so many organizations and people have been doing things the same way for years and years. And now we're talking about new day, new way. And, Bishop T.D. Jakes has just written a new book where he talks about disruption. We have to
disruptive thinking. Yeah.
Right. We have to disrupt the status quo. And so
Absolutely.
Part of the hesitancy comes from, what do you mean you want me to say we need to do it different? How am I going to bring that before whomever and get them to buy into changing our strategy, changing the way we do things? So part of it is just that uneasiness with introducing something that is new and different, even though the results suggest, like you said, from the Sunday event and the small teen challenge that I led, it makes a difference. And I'm still seeing the difference that it makes. But number two, even the game changers who are willing to broach a new day, a new way, and bring it back to their people and begin the process of teaching, some of them are struggling with their own challenges and issues, and in their own way, they're exploding. And sometimes nobody notices it. And sometimes the youth just take for granted that the adults have it all together. But many of the adults know, I don't. And I am struggling in my own right, and I need some assistance in helping me work through the challenges that I face, so that I can then be authentic and transparent with the young people, so that that gives me credibility with them. And I'm not a hypocrite, because young people can see a hypocrite a mile away.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, they don't feel inadequate to do the work that we're calling them to do as they lead and teach and train. So that's another area where many of the adults were willing to admit, I struggle myself, and I've got to tell the truth about that. And I need some help. I need some guidance on how do I deal with me, so that I can deal effectively with the young people. And so therein
lies the challenge, right?
Yes.
Because in order to really get the help that's needed to really effectively connect with these young people, we got to make sure that there are adults who are solid enough to actually go into the camp and really do the work. Exactly. And so even tonight, well, before I go into that statement, I want to pause for those of you who are joining us tonight. Thank you so much. I would encourage you to share this live. And let me just level set again. I'm speaking with Dr. Birdie Leatherman. She is the author of the book, Surrender or Explode, Learning to Play the Game of Life God's Way. And this is a book that's geared toward youth, and it's written in the context of a game from level 1 to leaderboard. And so this is about how do we help our young people to surrender, talk, share, rather than exploding. And exploding can be various things. But the challenge that has come is the fact that some of the adults are not prepared to go into these various environments and really help our young people. And so for those of us who have that opportunity, and you can be anywhere in the country. You don't have to be in Houston where she is. You don't have to be in Dallas where I am. You can be anywhere in the country and be a part of this movement and tap in to what is being, shared. And there is a large circle of people who get it, but the message has to continue to be shared. So the thought I was about to go into was this. Even tonight, there was a word being taught by Pastor Torre, and he mentioned a couple of things that I think kind of coincide, Dr. V, with this conversation.
Okay.
One statement he mentioned was belief desert.
Yes.
Because when there are environments where the belief is, there's a drought and and then the other term was cultivating the belief. So when there's no cultivation of belief, that's where fear and doubt and all these other mindsets, and it's like the word talks about being tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. So if this young person comes and says this, that young person gone that way. And if somebody else comes and says, well, you need to be with our group because they're doing XYZ, they're gone that way, because nobody's cultivating their belief.
Yes.
So, and even though there's always going to be some level of peer pressure,
yes,
at the end of the day,
right,
we have to prepare our young people for these different winds that flow to and fro. So I just wanted to parenthetically insert that so that you can kind of expound on how this belief desert and this drought of belief is impacting the parents. So inadvertently, the young people don't have a ground that's fertile.
No. Yeah, and you said that beautifully, because at the end of the day, that boils down to our commitment as the adults. And too often, number one, we assume that the young people have a foundation built on God's truth that many don't. But we assume that, and then we just start throwing things on top of that shaky foundation, and we expect it to be solid and stable. So anytime a little hurricane or storm or hailstorm comes up, they're at risk, they're vulnerable by that storm, no matter the size. But part of that commitment is our willingness to go beyond the superficial engagement and do a deep dive, do a deep connection where we are discussing, not just lecturing and preaching and reading lessons, but we are discussing, diving deep. And that's why I said, what I'm proposing is not broad. What I'm proposing is deep. Because if the young people have a deep foundation, I don't care what hurricane comes through, they're going to be able to weather the storm. But if they don't have that deep, solid foundation, I can go and I can knock them over by just a little breath that comes out of my lungs. So that is, I think, the fourth message that came through loud and clear in the huddle is that, ladies and gentlemen, game changers, moms and dads, we cannot spend more time and commitment on basketball and football than we do on teaching our young people God's truth so they can climb the levels of life to success by learning to play the game His way. And that's what you were talking about, Bridgette. I'm comparing video games to life. And in video games, you climb levels. In life, you climb levels. But if you don't learn the lessons well, you can't climb to the next level. And
how to navigate the challenges.
And not navigate that. And so many of our young people are stuck on in between level 1 and 2. Because they don't have a solid foundation. So those were the takeaways, and the theme was just common and pervasive, that we kept hearing the same things from different people. And I guess if I threw in a fifth one, the game changers do want to make a difference. They are ready. They just need some training. They need some resources. And that's why I'm going to do a webinar in April 13th. I'm going to do a live free webinar, because I hear the adults saying, help us, teach us, train us. So we're ready to train and teach the young people how to play the game of Black God's way. And that's why I said at the beginning, I'm excited. I cannot wait. And I want everybody who's listening to share this and to share the next step in the movement. The next step in the movement is going to be that webinar on April 13th. And I hope, I don't know, whatever the number is we can have on the webinar, but I want to break the record. And I want to have more people than we can actually sustain. And then we'll have to do a part 2. So I'm ready. I'm excited. And that's what came out of Saturday. And so the Super Bowl huddles were good. I'm a sports fan. But our huddle was good as well. And we had a victory, and there are more victories to come.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's so good to know that people are catching, and you know, when you dive into things that are as deep as something like this, it takes a minute for people, number one, to commit themselves, and then
Yes.
number two, for them to really go all in, because it's a huge commitment. And you know, when we talk about the youth, it's now starting in you know, grade school. It's starting in 9 and 10 and even younger. Kids
Yeah.
are so much more exposed.
Yeah.
Technology has it
Yes.
so well advanced them. You know, I have a granddaughter that's 9, and I'm telling you, she can hold a conversation with you like she's a 20-year-old. And so what we have to do, we have to listen, we have to cultivate, but then we
Yes.
have to teach and we have to train. So
Yes.
when she's in grandma's space, there's a
Yes.
different type of thing. When she's in her parents' space, that's a
Yes.
different level. They're a little
Right.
younger. So
Right.
there's certain things that, you know, they entertain and tolerate. I don't. And then I teach her and tell her why I'm not tolerating that.
Right.
However, there's some areas where the kids are really just raising themselves because the parents are trying to just survive.
Right.
And so we have so many different dynamics. And, you know, some people are screaming help by just, you know, the anxiety that they're dealing with. And so I want to ask this question. And here again, I want to ask those of you, just share it. And you don't know who on your page needs to hear it or wants
Please.
to engage, but
Please.
will you just please share this so that the message gets out?
Yeah.
Because I think it is so worth, however many children you can impact, young people you can impact, is going to be worth it. It's going to be
Yes.
worth the time. But how many young people are you aware of, or that you have had the opportunity to work with, that's under this age of 13 or 12, and anxiety and all of these other you know, depression and these kinds of things are prevalent and they are on the horizon?
Yes. 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 And it's overwhelmingly, the age is dropping. You nailed it. Because once upon a time, I was working with more 17, 18, 19-year-olds, but the age is gradually lowering. And I see
Hmm.
it. I had a little girl that I talked with today, and she was, oh my God, just a bundle of nerves. And my commitment, that's one of my 4 C's. My commitment was not to let her shut me out. I was
Hmm.
going to have her relax enough to trust me enough to open up so we could dialogue. And once we did, there was just a total shift in her demeanor in my office. And that's the thing I wanted to say. Yes, this is a great commitment by the adults, but I promise you, the reward for the adults will blow your mind when you watch these young people figure things out and process and show you their insight and their wisdom when they just receive the truth in
Yeah,
a way that is meaningful. And then they have a chance to dialogue with
yeah.
other youth and with other adults who are committed to listening to them. So I
Hmm.
cannot tell you, I always walk away from my contact with the young people blessed simply by the connection we made and how I watched them bloom and blossom in their own right because of what they're able to figure out without me imposing on them, but just allowing them a safe place to dialogue. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes,
And
ma'am.
a lot of them, it's just a matter of getting them to surrender in the confines of, can you talk it through?
Yes.
And you know, it's like with my clients. When I work with clients, the first thing that I want to do is that I want to talk them through to clarity,
Yes.
because what they think is maybe their vision is maybe not the vision. But until we talk it through,
Right.
that's the first step, talking it through, because
Yes.
I got to get to clarity, because I can't go forward and do what it is that I do as a consultant and as a coach until there's clarity.
Right.
And so it's important for them to have that opportunity to express themselves. And so oftentimes, once they begin to verbalize and they're able to really share and talk it out, and they may not be clear at first,
Right.
but then there's someone there to help steer and
Right.
help them to get clarity. And I think that's the most important part. You know, when people, even, you know, so many of the situations that we've experienced over the course of these last few years, people just had a lot of anxiety.
A
nobody to
lot of,
talk to,
right,
isolated,
right.
confined within their own
Yes,
minds,
yes,
and just, they couldn't handle the pressure.
right.
And we're having our
Nobody,
children deal with the
and
same thing.
nobody, young people or adults want to feel judged and condemned. They want to feel
Absolutely.
like it's safe. My thoughts, my ideas are valid, even if we don't agree. I love to remind adults, agreement is not the goal. The
Yeah.
goal is truth teaching so that they can choose. And I take it back to the garden. God gave Adam and Eve choice. They made the
Mm-hmm.
choices they made. And we want our young people to recognize that's God-given. And the consequences that come with them are the consequences that come with them. But we can't seek agreement to the detriment of them feeling
Mm-hmm.
safe and valued and understood.
Yeah. And the thing, I think for us as adults, and I've learned this in parenthood from the various stages, and now all of my children are grown, but I still have, grandchildren that I'm practicing in a little bit of a different way. But acknowledge where you are as an adult. Just,
Yeah,
just be straight up, because at the end of the day, they
yes,
hear, they see, and they know more than you think they do. And so as parents, as grandparents, you have got to be, you got to just, lay your truth out there.
yeah,
Acknowledge where you are,
yeah,
acknowledge what you didn't understand, or acknowledge the fact that, I may not have this down, but I'm here to listen,
yes,
and have the discussion, have
yes,
a conversation,
yes,
and allow yourself to sit in a place, of listening. And I mean, listen actively and
yes,
make sure that you are clearly hearing what is being said. And then have a discussion about it and
yeah,
allow them to ask questions, because
yeah.
here again, that gives them, a door to walk through.
Yes, yes. Preach, sister, preach. I love it. I love it. I can't add anything to that. That is because when they feel safe and not judged, they will talk
Absolutely.
about anything. So
Absolutely.
that's all I got.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I want to thank those of you that have tuned in tonight, and I hope that you are listening intently to the discussion we've been having. It is
Yes.
so
Thank
crucial.
you.
It is so, so, so very crucial.
Yes.
And for those of us that are believers, especially, do what we can. And if you can't do anything but share the message, share the message. You
Please.
don't know who needs it. I mean, it may not be for you, it may not be something that you do, but you may know a leader, a youth leader, a YMCA worker, or a teacher, or a youth pastor. You may know parents that are looking for an opportunity to get training, or to get some other tools in their toolbox to help them with their teenagers, or whatever the case may be. This is an opportunity.
Yes.
So I hear you asking questions. So where do you go to find out about the webinar, to sign up, or to share it with someone else? And I will put it in the comments once we're done. But the website is surrenderorexplode.com. And
Yes.
so if you'll go to surrenderorexplode.com/webinar, just go to the webinar tab and you'll be able to register there. It's a free registration. It's going to
Yes.
ask you a couple of simple questions, and you'll be able to register for that webinar. And that will be the opportunity for you to be with other adults and parents
Yes.
and leaders that are trying to get to the same place you're trying to get to, or learn the same kind of information you're trying to learn. And so I think it would behoove you, if you are in that place, or if you have grandchildren or children who have teenagers, that would be interested in this opportunity that Dr. V is so passionate about. And
Yes.
of course, this is her line of work as a clinical clinician as well, but this is outside of the office. So she's
Yeah.
outside of the office
Yeah.
with this venture.
Yes.
And so she'd love to have you be a part of it.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Anything else you want to add to that, Dr. V, before we
Well,
get
and
ready
just
to?
I might just throw out the private Facebook group for Game Changers. Surrender or Explode Game Changers is my private Facebook group. We would welcome you. Knock on the door, we'll let you in. And there's lots of information and discussion that goes on there not daily, but several times a week, we've got something new and fresh, and you can always dialogue with the other members of that group and just share and
Absolutely.
ask questions. So, and you can ask me questions and I'll respond to your questions. So that's one other avenue to access what we're doing, what the movement's all about, and how you can be involved, because the movement
Absolutely.
has begun.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Dr. V also has some trainings on her YouTube channel, Surrender or Explode. Or Dr. You just go look up Verdi Leatherman, Dr. Verdi Leatherman. And so there are some trainings from the previous event where
Yes.
she's done a training and talked about the demonstrations and so forth of her pilot group. So she kind of walks you through that process. So you can kind of start there. So if you attend the webinar, you have questions, you can, then ask those questions in that open forum. So
Absolutely.
there's all kinds of information out there, and to prepare you, to help you get ready, and to give you some level of foundation. And then Dr. V talked to us about, you have a workbook coming out to accompany, it's a companion document to accompany the book,
Yes.
to also help them with, the study.
Yes, yes. And that's one of the things I learned somewhat painfully, that this isn't as easy for some people as it is for me. I've been doing this for a few decades now. And I love it. I create on the fly and I just do it, but everybody doesn't. And some
Yes,
people want to do it, but they need a little more assistance. So I'm developing the workbook that goes hand in hand with the book itself, and it will give you exercises, icebreakers, questions to ask, so that you can actually structure and lead the discussions so that the young people figure things out on their own in a
sure,
safe environment with adult leadership. Bam. And
absolutely.
that's expected to come out the 1st of March. And it's going to have some nuggets in it that you really don't want to miss. If you want to be one of the ones that are actually leading the studies, you'll want to get your
Sure,
hands on the workbook.
absolutely.
Yes.
Well, once again, Dr. V, thank you for coming back, giving us an update, sharing with us what's been happening, your experience with your huddle, what came out of that, and for letting us know about the upcoming webinar
Yeah.
that you are offering to help game changers, adults, parents, youth leaders, workers, nonprofit organization leaders,
Yes.
youth
All of the
groups,
above.
whatever, just whatever, wherever this can be shared and wherever is applicable, so that
Yeah.
they can get that additional training and get that opportunity to spend some one-on-one time with you, and ask their questions, and get prepared for whenever they want to start their
Yes.
own study.
Yes.
So once again, surrenderexplode.com, and just check out everything on the site, but definitely go and sign up for the webinar. It's free, and it's just a couple hours of your time maybe, but otherwise definitely take advantage of that, or share it with somebody that would be interested.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Bridgette. My privilege once again.
Absolutely, always glad to have you. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, and we'll continue to keep you posted about this movement, and I think it is going to explode for sure.
Yes.
We just have to continue to share the message. So
Yes.
definitely feel free to leave comments, or ask questions, or go to her page, reach out, and she'll definitely respond back to you. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much. All right, y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next time.